Trustee Gray?
Present.
Trustee Caprio?
Present.
Trustee Rogers?
Present.
Trustee Trustees?
Present.
Trustee Detroit?
Present.
Mayor Yukich?
Present. Okay, are there any amendments to the agenda? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 22nd, 2018 Village Board meeting?
I so move.
Trustee Sweets? Second. Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of September 12th, 2018 Village Board meeting? I so move. Mr. Caprio?
I'll second.
Sweets? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of September 26th, 2018 Village Board meeting? So moved. Trustee Gray?
I'll second.
Trustee Rogers? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
I'll abstain. Motion carries.
Actually, I think Georgie has a lot on that one. That's only 3. You have an extend, you have an absent, and then
Oh, there's a Brian sign there. Yeah. Aye. Okay, is there a motion to approve the accounts payable for the period of October 12th, 2018 through October 25th, 2018?
I so move.
Mr. Sweets? A second. Caprio? Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweets?
Aye.
Trustee Detroit?
Aye.
Carries. Reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. The trick-or-treat hours are set from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Wednesday, October 31st in the village of Homer, Glen. For a list of Halloween safety tips, please visit www.homerglenil.org for information. And remember, it's very dark out there. The kids just don't pay attention to where they're going, so let's watch out that, please. We'll go to the trustees, and we'll start off with Trustee Gray.
No report.
Trustee Detroit.
The only thing I have is the Christmas event called the Homer for the holidays. It's a Christmas tree lighting event on Saturday, December 1st from 4:30 to 6:30. We'll have Santa, we'll have kids to write letters to Santa and crafts and all that fun stuff. Saturday, December 1st from 4:30 to 7:30. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Rogers.
Just a reminder that we have our Veterans Day event. The Village of Homer Glen's Veterans Day event is November 11th at Kono's from 12 to 3. So it's not for just veterans, it's for veterans, their family members, and the community in general to come out and honor our current and past vets. We'll have a color guard there, 21 gun salute, we'll have have hot dogs, popcorn, pizza, weather pending, we're gonna have some games, bands, so it should be a good time.
Sorry, what's that?
12 to 3 on November 11th at Cornell's. Am I missing anything, Bruce?
Well, we'll have, Jimmy wants to talk about it too.
Sure.
What about the tab?
You know, the honor guard for the Will County Sheriff's Department is honored to be taking part in this event, and we're going to be doing a 21 gun salute, as you had mentioned. Taps will be played, we're going to be presenting the colors, so we'd like to see the public out there. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
You got it, sir.
In the table, the POW table. There'll be, you know, a free pod with beer for purchase. We'll have a raffle. The raffle will be, the proceeds for the raffle will go towards building the Veterans Memorial out here in Heritage Park. So we're adding more and more, it seems like, every week, so it should be a good event. That's awesome.
Okay, Trustee Sweet.
No report this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. And Trustee Gilbert.
Just quickly reporting on behalf of the Parade and Festival Committee, we are working towards an IGA with the Township for the 2019 festival. We think we have things agreed upon and we're moving forward with getting that done. Anne Marie, the village manager, is working hard to help us get that done along with Sue Stylen and some other staff members, so I appreciate that. And we look to have a successful festival here on our first year on the village grounds. We hope and we know it will be successful. We just need some weather cooperation and some volunteer cooperation, but that's almost still 9 months away, 8 months away, so we're a little ways away, but we're working hard towards that goal.
And the dates are going to be what?
June 20th through the 23rd, 23rd, yeah.
Thank you.
Thursday, June 20th through the 23rd, which is Sunday.
Just to kind of piggyback on that, because it is going to be out at Heritage Park here, the park, a lot of the toys are out there now, so you can take a ride on the ring road and see, you know, some of, especially in the exercise equipment. I mean, it's very impressive. The pre-core that's out there, I call it pre-core, looks in electrical. It looks just like an electrical, so the equipment is really impressive. You can see it from the road. I think Trustee Gray had an opportunity to get a little tour of it on Saturday. The lights on the ring road that are going around the ring road are working now, so that helps a lot as far as, especially for our event on the 1st. But, you know, I encourage people to take a ride around there or walk around there and just look at the progress that's taking place. I think we're going to post some aerials that were recently taken, but a lot has happened since even those aerials took place. So just encourage people to take a look at it. It's exciting to see the growth that's going on there.
Thank you. Mr. Sawyer.
Thanks, Mayor. I have the Treasurer's Report of Cash and Investments at September 30. It's the 5th month of fiscal 2019. It shows the general fund with cash and investment balance of $5,390,180.40. The special event fund had a balance of $40,903.63. The environmental fund had a balance of $86,239.02. The motor fuel tax fund had a balance of $1,282,892.32. Park and Recreation Fund had a cash and investment balance of $4,019,683.23. The Debt Service Fund had a balance of $3,573,648.49. Capital Project Fund had a balance of $1,032,388.62. The EAB Tree Replacement Fund had a balance of $356,814.65. And the final fund, the Capital Project Bond Fund, had a balance of $13,045,817.02 for a grand total of $28,828,567.38. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Sayers. Any discussion, Mr. John? Okay. official. Want to come back up?
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate that. You know, on the heels of what you had brought up before, Mayor, about being careful around, you know, the Halloween trick-or-treat hours, just a reminder to everybody with Konos and Bankston's, we're getting towards the end of the season, it could get busy, so especially coming down here, down 151st, just remind everybody, watch your speed and just be careful through there. And that's my report.
Just a quick question, I know that, and maybe it might be something that public safety, your public safety meeting is already had it for October, correct?
Correct.
Because we do have like this, you know, special set aside fund that we have, and just wondering if maybe we can use some of those funds for Halloween. You know, we have that extra,
For additional controls.
yeah, I mean, just something to think about, because,
Did we use that money for Homerfest? We didn't use that, did we? For additional sheriff's hours? Yeah, are you talking about that, like there's 20?
yeah, you know, like we talked about using it when, at the Benson team, when they do their wildflower fest, and, it's not something that's tapped out, I know that, right? I don't know if it's just something that maybe we could look in doing, you know what I'm talking about?
Sure, absolutely.
To avoid egging and pumpkin throwing?
Pardon?
To avoid egging and pumpkin throwing with your
Well,
eating?
no, more
They're
just,
going to get some.
no, you know, more just, speeders, you know, and things like that.
Can we ask the interim village manager, maybe she can look into it and see how much his money's left in that fund, and if we can use some of those funds for Halloween?
I made a note of it, and I'll follow up with the finance director, and we will report back to the board.
There tends to be, and again, I put this out there, I don't have kids, so I've never been in the trick-or-treating, but I know there has to be subdivisions that are more higher volume subdivisions than others. Like I said, mine never had a trick-or-treater there, but, you know, maybe you could get a feel for what those subdivisions are, and maybe, you know, you had kids, or is it your subdivision?
No, my subdivision has aged a bit, but you could find out from the school, 33C's transportation department would know that, based on the pickup of 7th grade and.
Like where they're dropping kids off, where, I mean, it's gonna be, you know, if kids are smart like I was, you go to the ones where it's like boom, 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 outside the house.
Oh, for sure.
It shouldn't require board approval to spend the funds, since the funds are already out there, right? Because Halloween being next Wednesday,
Right,
there should be consensus that if there's funds available, everybody.
And Will County's up to it.
Yes, sir.
They might put them up for free.
Whatever it takes.
Oh, Snickers, right?
So, Ann, can you just let us know what the decision is?
I will, the next day or two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This one, Village Manager.
No report at this time, thank you.
You? All right, we're going to have public comment. We'd like to see if we can keep it to 3 minutes. First one is going to be Jimmy El Chasino.
That was a mistake. I voted for something else. I thought it was a sign.
Not a problem. Next one is going to be Mike Burton.
I'm back again, and it's in regards to a problem that's going on in Parker that the mayor and Joe and BJ and we were at, which was over 2 months ago. And at the end of the meeting, I spoke with the mayor and asked him if he would call me back with the results. And so I don't know how long do I wait for an answer. I did get a call from Joe mentioning that there is no business being run on the property. I in turn said that I'd really like to hear from you. And I also asked Joe over a month ago if I could get it in writing with the backup of how the decision came about. I didn't hear from Joe for a couple of weeks. I called Joe a week and a half ago. Still no call from Joe. Now, I mentioned to Joe earlier that I've been contacting him in regards to this problem for over a year and a half. And I keep track of what I do. I called Joe 11 times. 5 of those 11 times, he has not called me back. And that also does not include the one from a week and a half ago. So what do I do to get an answer, and an answer in writing, for what?
If you're looking for an answer, whether it's a business or not, then Joe has already answered it, that it's not a business.
Okay. Then why did Joe just tell me they're applying for a business license to run a landscaping company off of that property?
Well, maybe they're going to turn it into a business. I mean, right now, we're all in the same meeting. I don't know why they're coming in for a license.
But isn't it obvious that they're running a landscaping company? They kind of get turned in for it, and all of a sudden now they're applying for a business license?
If I can chime in. So I apologize, I've been out because I had surgery on the 4th. While I was out, I had received the application, and I talked to Joe, and he said he would get back to me, and we kind of had touched base a couple times. So they have submitted an application, and I did send it to zoning to make sure, you know, if this was allowed under our zoning regulations. And after he, you know, clarified that, there have been some additional questions. So we just need to get the attorney to weigh in, and this literally has happened since I got back on Monday. So that's kind of where it's been for the last 2 weeks because I've been out.
And that's okay.
So,
I hope you're better.
yeah, and I haven't even had a chance to tell George. So.
We're going to investigate the building itself, and I'm going to contact the property owner, find out exactly what type of business he's intending to run there. It is approved for certain business based on the zoning, so we're going to investigate that before we issue the business license.
And then you think you'll be able to finish that up this week or next week? You're waiting for AJ to get you some information?
No, we have the zoning, it's just based on how we filled out the application.
Okay. So we should know something within a week?
I would think we would know it, right?
Yeah, we want to inquire if he's intending on having the public there, or what his parameters are for what type of business he's intending to do there. And we haven't gotten that information yet.
So you're trying to make a decision if you're going to allow commercial businesses to be run off that corridor? Out of that corridor?
Commercial, based on the zoning, is not allowed in that area, correct?
It's zoned A1 agricultural where a certain type of business in terms of like landscaping and whatnot would be permitted.
So based on how he filled out the application, we had some questions, Joe and I, and that's where we stand now. So we just need to talk to the attorney and clarify with the business owner, and that's where it lays right now. But we should know by Friday.
So if you make a decision that you can run a landscaping company out of there,
The question is,
will I be able to get back
open
up
to
on
the public,
Well,
and that invites
Right.
additional
A
regulations.
landscaping company or a nursery, I think, there's specific in the zoning ordinance what type of business you can run there, and that's what we're going to be investigating.
Okay. Did you ever check to see if he plugged the floor drains in the building?
We're investigating that. Part of my process in doing this is going to be an inspection on the building itself.
It takes 2 months.
Pardon?
It takes 2 months to see it. He said he was going to do it that week. And you said that you would check on it right away.
Well, I'll be doing this.
It just seems like a lot of things take way longer than they should.
A lot of things are on my plate, Mike.
Well, I understand, but when you say you were going to do it in a week,
All right. We gave you an answer, you should have it by Friday, and someone will get a hold of us, Bert.
and can I get your decision on that a commercial business isn't being run out of there in writing?
They'll give you all the specifics once, if the permit comes up.
Well, it has nothing to do with that. It's from the meeting that we had, you were going to make a decision whether a business was being run out of there or not. And you were going to contact me, and you haven't. Sorry.
If I contacted back every single solitary person that wanted to talk to me, I would live on the phone.
And I agree, but you and I talked, and you said to me directly that you would call me back.
I honestly don't recall that, but if Joe called you, Joe would be telling you the exact same thing that I would be telling you, that Joe would have told me then. So, we should have an answer for you by Friday.
Okay.
Okay?
So, an answer on what?
On what is going to happen with it, if it's going
But you still haven't answered the question, what about an answer from the meeting? I haven't got an answer from the meeting yet, in writing, like I asked for.
He filed the application after the meeting.
Oh, this has nothing to do with that.
It actually does, because that's where we stand right now, based on the way he filled out the application, as to what his business is, that's where the questions lie. So because I was not in the office and did not get a chance to talk with Joe, that's where the questions
It was
lie.
determined that he was not running a business out of there.
Correct, that's what you told me, not the mayor, but you did. So I would like that answer in writing with backup how you came up with that answer. And you told me a week and a half ago, or a month ago, I'm sorry, that you would get that for me. So that's what I'm here for, to see, how do I get it?
Well, we don't have the answer yet because Ann's working on it. So when we get the answer, I'll give you a call. I don't have an answer. I'm not going to guess, and I'm not going to tell you something you want to hear.
But Joe has already said that they're not running business out of there. That, he said that's what your answer was. All I'm asking for is to get that in writing.
I will get back to you by Friday, in writing.
With a decision whether they've been running a commercial business out of there for the last year.
Oh, that I cannot answer to.
I know.
He
That's
did
what
not
we have.
submit an application until September 12th.
Okay, but we had a meeting to make that decision. I got an answer from Joe. All I'm asking for is that in writing.
You're going to find out Friday. You're beating a dead horse right now.
Okay.
So let's find out what it is, and we'll give you something to write. Whether it was running a business before or not, we don't think so. We want to find out why he's coming now to get a business license.
Okay.
So let us find out what it is, and then we can put this to rest. Okay?
So,
By Friday, we'll give you an
how
answer.
about take 2 weeks? Because it seems like.
I'd rather get this done by Friday.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Okay, Tony.
Hi, I'll be quick. I wasn't able to come to the last meeting when you guys passed on the M&I homes back to the planning commission. I was at that first planning commission when they went over it, and I felt that there were a lot of people in the room that didn't have their voices heard. And I know that this has been a discussion in this group multiple times. And I've emailed you guys, I know you guys from email. I just want to get in front of you guys and say, I would like to have a larger discussion about this. I know that they rubber stamped it the last time around. It comes back to all of you. You know, I know it's going to come down to you guys, and I want I'd like to better understand what you guys think that M&I Homes is bringing to the table for Homer Glen. And that can be a discussion away from here. I had a very good discussion with Mary Rukich about it, and I'm not opposed to the development, but you know, I chose to bring my 4 kids out here at Homer Glen to live because it's different. And, you know, I had choices to go to Mokina or Lennox or Downers or wherever, and I chose here because of the open space, because of the trees, because it's different. And everybody has a choice. And you know, we've set forth this village with certain standards, and you know, the list of variances that M&I Homes is requesting is laborious, and there's plenty of things that are not even on that list that don't fit with criteria for how we should build homes, build condos, build townhomes. And you know, my job is numbers, finance, negotiation, and I know going to any negotiation you can bend on certain things, and that there's a reason to do that. But a lot of times you get something out of that, and I don't really understand what we're getting from M&I Homes. You know, I raised the point that we do need more retail in here. We need more businesses. We need, you know, to be more self-sustaining from that perspective. And that it takes rooftops, it takes mailboxes to get there. But we're talking about in our strategic plan, you know, our strength of having open space, and then we're talking about replacing it with townhomes, which, you know, the company that we paid to do that analysis, I don't think has ever put townhomes in a village's strength. And I'm open, again, to development. I'm fine with development, I'm fine with more businesses coming in this town, but it's got to be right. You know, I want to see what is the cash flow of this sort of development? You know, is this a net addition to Homer Glen? What does this do to our market analysis? You know, we talk about in our strategic plan that we're going to do a market analysis. Why doesn't that come first before we make all these concessions to bring in all these people? It might be that we're just adding density to add density, and that it doesn't actually get us over some threshold that is going to bring in a business. We don't get there, and all we've done is add density and deviate from the standards that we've set forth. I know you guys heard from me already over email. I just want to get in front of you guys and, you know, just state it again. I'm willing to talk about this. I'm okay with development, but I want it to be right. You know, I have 4 kids. I want not only to be right in year 1 through 5 when they're developing it, or 1 through 6, whatever it is, however long it'll take, but I also want it to be right 20 years from now. I don't plan on leaving. You know, my kids want to live here. They want to live here because it's different. They have other options. If they want something different, they can live in the city. They can live in Mokina. They can live wherever. I chose here because it's different. We gotta uphold those standards that makes us unique. That being unique is a value. Having open space is a value. Let's not give it away to a company that is deceptive in one, what they're saying these homes are going to sell for. I mean, they're saying they're going to sell for $750,000. They said the townhomes are going to sell for 4s and 5s. It's deceptive. And they come back with math that says, okay, we're changing our density calculation. We're less dense. We went from 9 point whatever to 6 point whatever, which is a pretty big change. But if you look at the map, you look at what they came back with, and it's the exact same. They've just changed a number in the calculation. I'm happy to take this offline in a smaller group too. I want to do what's best for this community. I think that I could help. But I don't think this is right. I don't think it's right at all. And I've heard from some of you guys that agreed. There were, you know, this room was full of people that all. There was not one person here except for a person from Oak Brook who had a real estate interest in this happening. But there was going to be, if we have this next discussion with the Planning Commission, you know, I hope it doesn't get rubber stamped. I hope that they had a good discussion. But there's going to be a lot more people in this room. It's not right for us to just ignore the standards we set forth in building this community. Sorry for taking more than 3 minutes.
Thanks, man. The one thing so you want to say, there is no rubber stamp with the Planning Commission. It's a good group of people that are just as concerned about this village as you are. So let's see what happens.
It's not the feel. I know you were there. It's not the feel that I got, but I'm glad you said that.
Thank you.
When do you foresee this going back to plan?
It's November 1st.
November 1st?
Yes.
What is that, November? What time?
It's next Thursday.
We're going to be at the dinner, but we can shoot from the dinner here. It starts 7 o'clock here that night.
November 1st at 7?
No. November 1st at 7, yes.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, man. Going on to legislation items. Is there a motion to authorize the village board to accept and receive the fiscal year-end ending April 30th, 2018 village audit?
So moved.
Second? Sorry. All right. Rogers? Okay. Discussion?
I know that sorry, I'm just pulling it up here. The budget in the past, or the audit in the past, has always been done by Mulcahy and Associates, so that we were clear, this is under a new name, but same company. Mulcahy and Associates was purchased by Mueller, and essentially it's the same people. Nobody's changed. It kind of grew, branched out to different areas, but it's the same company, just larger, but the same people are still there and have always been there.
So, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. And that is correct. We merged effective January 1st of 18, but The people on the audit are still the same cast of characters that have been involved. Kevin Pistol, our senior manager, was actively involved. I think he's been involved pretty much since the beginning, and he was instrumental in the preparation of this report. And what I'd like to do is just go through the report real quick with you, get some of the highlights. If there's questions, please stop me. But this is an audit for the year ended April 30th of 18. It's almost 90 pages. It seems like every year it grows a little larger. Starts with the transmittal letter, because what you're, once again, are seeing is a comprehensive annual financial report. This is the most extensive reporting that an entity such as the village can prepare. And on that first page, it shows that last year, April 30th of 17, was the 16th year, consecutive year. So basically, since your inception, you've received the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement in Excellence in Financial Reporting. This report for the year ended April 18 is being submitted for the review as well, and our expectations that the string will continue. But the transmittal introduces the reader of the document to the kind of the overview of your economic conditions, some of the initiatives that were undertaken during the past year, some little bit of discussion regarding the financial information, and then the fact that the audit was performed. Following that is that certificate for the prior year. List of the principal officials and organization chart, and that's the introduction section of the report. Then, beginning on page Roman numeral 10, is our contribution to the packet. This letter is explaining to whoever is reading the statement that these are your financial statements. You, as the highest level of management, are responsible through administration to the preparation and presentation. And as auditors, it's our responsibility to perform the audit, look at documentation, test transactions, and form an opinion. And that last sentence on that page says that we feel that the audit evidence obtained is sufficient to form an opinion, which on the following page is that we feel these statements do fairly present all material respects the financial position and result of operations for the village as of before the year ended April 30th of 18. What's referred to as an unmodified opinion. That's, we feel there's no modifications that need to be made to these statements in order for them to be present fairly where you stood and what happened this past year. So that's as good as it gets from the audit standpoint. And that's what you as a board should hope to hear, and we're very pleased to be able to get that opinion. There's some additional information that some is required, some is just in there to again make this the comprehensive report. There's comparative information, and the report on that information last year was also an unmodified opinion. So all in all, it's as I said, you should hope to hear, and we're pleased to hear that we feel that these statements are appropriate. Following that is the management discussion and analysis. A couple financial highlights. Talks about your assets and deferred outflows over liabilities and deferred inflows. Basically, a balance sheet for those in the business world that you had net position or equity of a little over $58 million, and that does include the long-term assets as well as the long-term debt. Your governmental funds, which is more of a short-term perspective, did have an ending fund balance of a little more than $28.5 million. And as reported earlier, the cash balances are maintaining pretty close to where they were as of the end of the year. This past year, you had an increase in your net position of about almost $3.5 million, which was $626,000 more than the prior year. So all in all, a pretty good year for the village. There's some discussion regarding the funds that are included, the comparison with this year and last year. As we move through the report, there's talks about the budgetary highlights on page Roman numeral 19. And one thing too, I think that's very important to note is that for your general fund, you had budgeted spending at just slightly more than $8.9 million. Your expenditures were actually $8.6 million, a little more than 8.6. So significantly less. There also that from a revenue standpoint, that you had budgeted revenues a little more than $9 million, and the actual revenues came at $9.7 million. So it's as I think you've consistently done, is that you are conservative on the revenue side, conservative on the expenditure side, and typically what happens is your revenues, actual revenues outpace what you expected, but on the other hand, you don't spend what you had budgeted, and therefore you continue to build your fund balances and increase your equity position. There's a discussion regarding the capital assets then finally talks a little bit about what's going on in this current year. But all in all, I think that gives a pretty good summary of the results. The actual financial statements begin on the number pages. Pages 1 and 2 are what are called the entity-wide or combined statements, where all the funds are added together, and the capital assets and long-term debt are added. And that's where that $58 million net position figure is derived. The funds are begin on page 3. Page 3 and 4 is the balance sheet, or a snapshot of where you stood, and that's where that $28 million fund balance. So there's actually a decrease. We move on to pages 6 and 7. This past year, your fund balance has actually decreased a little over $1 million, but that's because there were, capital outlay was close to $3.5 million this past year. Again, primarily out of the capital project fund, but some out of the motor fuel tax fund as well. So if you look at the operating fund, the general fund, you actually, even after the transfer, you ended up increasing your fund balance by a little over $208,000. There's a comparison to budget for the general fund on pages 9 and 10. And again, that's where that the revenues and the expenditure variances that I mentioned before are detailed. There's a additional, all the major funds have the same type of thing, whereas the budget comparison and the actual with the prior year. Moving on to then page 17 are the notes to the financial statement. These talk about your accounting policies. There were no changes in your accounting policies this past year. Just a couple of the notes to call your attention on page 24 talks about your, it starts on the bottom of page 23, but that talks about deposits, but the investments were all, anything that was rated was AAA rated. You were all fairly short term in duration as far as the maturity, which as rates are climbing, you're able to start taking advantage of those increases. So I think you're in a good situation there. The capital assets are on page 26, showing the additions and what was depreciated. And then your long-term liabilities are actually on page 28, showing that there's still $8.3 million of the bonds outstanding, which we paid off by the year 2023. And then really the other liabilities are your net pension liability, which is the obligation
Hey,
to...
I'm sorry, Ed, could I stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
Could you just speak up just a little bit?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know if the mic's catching you. I'm having a hard time following you.
Oh, okay. On page 28 is the summary of the debt, and as I said, the bonds payable are your formal debt. Then you have the net pension liabilities, your obligation to IMRF, and that actually went down this year, and that's somewhat due to how IMRF's investments performed. And there's a schedule we'll get to in the back that indicates that. But basically, you're paying everything you're required to pay to IMRF. And it's, the good news is that that liability went down from $671,000 to the $421,000 at the end of this year. Speaking of IMRF, that's really the balance of the footnotes, and it gives where that the net pension liability, how that was derived, is on page 32. There's a summary at the bottom. Basically, IMRF uses a 7.5% discount, and depending upon if the rate were to have increased or earned 8.5%, that liability would decrease to $135,000. But if it had rate had gone down to 6.5%, that liability would have increased. So it's one of those things. Again, your rate is adjusted each year by IMRF, trying to amortize this unfunded amount. And again, your contributions are being paid as required. So there's really nothing else to worry about there. And all in all, IMRF, with all the pension funds in the state, is probably the healthiest. So if you're going to have a liability, there's a lot of, like the teachers' fund for the schools is much, it's a much lower funding level, and a lot of, especially, the downstate fire and police pension funds, a number of them are struggling as well. So I think from that standpoint, you're sitting pretty well. There's, again, even more information on 35 and 36. This schedule ultimately will be a 10-year schedule. It's, has been required for the last 4 years, and every year a year will be added. But about 2/3 of the way down, you can see that in 2014 that liability was $368,000, and it was increasing, and then now it's the 2021. So again, it just kind of fluctuates based on how the assets of the fund are performing. But again, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. The next part of the report is supplemental information. There's individual fund statements comparing the budget. I'm not going to go through any of those unless there's a specific question on the fund. And then the last part of major categories of statistics, and this is a lot of 10-year trend information regarding this summary of financial statements for the last 10 years, where your revenues are coming from. You know, the fact that, you know, if you look at it, it's all intergovernmental revenue, there's no property tax revenue included, because you don't levy taxes. Shows what your debt capacity, what your legal debt margin, some demographics and operating expenses, which make, I think a reader of the statement can get a real good flavor of what's going on in the village, where we've been, and hopefully from there, where things are going. So all in all, I think from a number standpoint, it's a real strong report. You continue to show positive results. And I think one of the highlights again is the budgetary information, where what your plan was, you achieved, and actually in less dollars than what was anticipated. So I'll stop at that moment. Are there any questions on the audit report itself?
It's good every year.
Yeah, well, I was just saying, we're just the messenger. So, and as I was telling John earlier, a boring audit is a good audit. There shouldn't be any surprises. So I think I'd like to, publicly thank John and his, efforts of putting this all together, because you wouldn't get a document of this quality without this, the efforts and the support of your administration. So, John, thank you for your support. Actually, one of the other things that we provide is that letter. It's called the governance letter, where we talk about how the audit process went. And the only journal entries that had to be recorded were to get those entity statements, those front statements, which you don't record in the general ledger. But as far as any reclassifications or any corrections, everything was as it should be. And ideally, the audit results need to be a reflection of where what you've been seeing each month, from your reports. If you're seeing something that all year long you're theoretically having surpluses, and then the audit comes along and shows no, it's all deficits, that would be a concern. So, as I said, as auditors, we're known to be boring, but boring is good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sawyers.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. There was a lot of help putting this together. Gina Spino and Heather helped a lot, so we appreciate it, and thank you very much.
And so if there's any questions that do come up after or during the year, I know John calls from time to time, please, if we can help, let us know.
Thank you.
Again, thank you very much.
As far as like a housekeeping thing, I just want to make sure that we have the names straight, because I see MPS on some and Mueller on others, so whatever the end result is, just gotta make sure everything says Mueller.
Yeah, everything after January 1st of 18 is all under Mueller Company.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There's all our comments.
Next one.
That's right.
No. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Cabrio?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Steve? Aye. Trustee Nancy-Turkey?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 18-053, an ordinance granting a special use permit for a major amendment to the Homer Glen Bell Plaza Plan Unit Development, UD 220903, compliance amendments of Chapter 220 zoning of the code of the Village of Homer Glen, including 1, a variance to increase the maximum permitted height of 2 multi-tenant signs from 10 feet to 15 feet, and 2, a variance to increase the maximum permitted copy area per sign face of these 2 multi-tenant signs from 65 square feet to 102 square feet to 20-1005 signs of Chapter 220 zoning of the Code of Village of Homer Glen, all located in the C2 Local Business District at the southwest corner of 143rd Street and South Bell Road, Homer Glen, Illinois. Poplar Property Group, LLC, case number HG1822S.
I so move.
Mr. Cabrio,
One second.
Mr. Gray, discussion.
Would you like to come on up again?
Not really.
Done a long time.
Well, they don't want to discuss it, so apparently that's your options right there, is what we just got done saying, so they did raise them, so hopefully we're all good now.
Well,
There is one, right, there is one slight change since the last time you were here, right? You've raised them higher now, it's still the same square footage, and still you want a 15-foot max on the top of it.
We actually reduced the sign area from 120 to 102.
Last time you were here, it was 102.
Right, so that's the same, but in the course of my 5 trips here to talk about the sign, we started at 120, but it evolved because of the concern that cars would block the lower part of the sign. So this last time we raised the bottom up, kept the top the same, so we reduced the sign area by about 20 square feet. And I must say that not having an approval is hampering my client from using that as a hook to get tenants into the shopping center. So every week or every time I come out here, he asks, well, has it been approved? So I am hopeful that the board approves it.
Is the copy center, is there going to be, what, 4 stores listed on these signs?
Right now, we're showing 4 divisions. Part of the negotiation with a tenant is, well, we want half the sign, so maybe there'll be 3. I had a discussion with staff, I don't know before which meeting, and I said, what if we wanted to go to 5? And they checked with council, and they said that it wasn't an original request. So we're showing 4, and we're keeping it at 4, and it might end up being 3. And if we do request, or the client wants to go 5, then we'd have to come back.
Is this more or less for interior stores? Because I don't think if you're not doing it for interior stores and you're going to do it for the outside stores where they have signage already, I don't think you need 15 feet, to have such a large sign. But I can see the point for interior.
There's 2 things, and I thought I made that clear. These 15-foot high ground signs are to indicate where the entrances are. They're wayfinding signs in addition. The main reason is to provide advertising for those 2 buried lots in the middle. But where we end up having a multi-tenant building, like on lot 5 where Taco Bell is going, that sign would also, and it's part of the negotiation between a prospective tenant and the landlord, to be placed on this sign. If, for example, somebody goes in on lot 1, and we still don't know if we're going to go with 2 buildings, or my client hasn't decided whether he's going with 2 buildings or 1 building, there's a big tenant that might be going in there. Well, having them advertised on Bell would be a big help, because the entrances are so remote, and that other building is so remote. So these 15-foot high signs have multiple purposes.
Any other questions?
I just enjoy the fact that you lost the jacket through your 5th meeting. Sorry.
No, that's
All right.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Coffee. Trustee Gray.
Aye.
Trustee Gabriel.
Aye.
Trustee Sweet. Aye. Trustee Knights-Tree.
Aye.
Trustee Rogers.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the patience, sir. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 18-054? Ordinance granting 1 special use for a generally located in the C3 General Business District at 14245 South Greystone Drive, Homer Glen, Illinois. Aldi, Inc., case number HG1829SS.
So,
Trustee Gray,
A second.
Cabrio, discussion. Go ahead.
Well, I do have an issue with flat box signs. We do not permit them according to code. And I was wondering if there could be tweaked some which way, or put, have a dimensional logo sticking up, something that will not just be a flat box.
Right, and our architect had sent a picture from one of our other locations that we've done. Every time we're expanding off of the front short wall or front long wall, we're essentially doing this design. We don't normally vary from this. By putting it on this metal type background, the sign essentially popping off a little bit. So it is coming off. Our current sign right now is what we're avoiding, is the fact that it's just a plain box. This is our prototype. This is what's used across, our 1,200 stores that we have and that we've been remodeling. We're always, we can talk about it. I know there was a suggestion sent today. That was from our old Orland Hill store before it was remodeled. All of this was removed and changed to the new logo on that metal, I believe on the metal backing. Sometimes the glazing is required, but for the most part, we don't do any of the food market anymore. So we do work with Doyle signs, and we try and find what works best for us and, obviously the community, what you guys want. But, this is the general prototype that we use, and it does come off the building more than,
Well, it's still a box sign. I'm
Sure.
talking about I could see it coming off the building. I'm talking about the sign itself where it's flat, like that logo or the word Aldi. That's just flat.
I see.
It's not.
I see what you're saying. So,
Right.
definitely something that we could go to the Doyle sign and say, is it possible to use our skin that we currently have and put those block
Put
letters
something,
on top?
or dimension,
On
block
top of
letters
that
or
current sign.
some type of dimension.
Sure.
So that, because, my concern is we start giving variances for things like this, then we're gonna wind up with a lot more box signs, and we don't want those.
Sure.
So if you could do that, that would.
I totally understand. I just have to go, I can't make that decision. I don't have that authority, so I could go back to Doyle and see what they could make for us. I can't envision if it looks this way with block lettering coming off of that sign, that would be a huge deal. We were thinking like the food market and things like that. That's just not in the direction they're always going right now. But I can't envision there being a huge issue with some block lettering on, in addition to that sign, if the company can somehow put that together for us.
Even if they want to do the logo instead of the name, whatever is easier for them.
Right,
Something.
yeah, and we talked to the DJ today. If we can get something from Doyle, I can email them tomorrow morning and then get me something by tomorrow afternoon.
Did I see in one of the, I think VJ, something you emailed, can this section be, I'm not trying to be aesthetically,
No, but it
can
looks
that
better.
be glazed? Is that something that you
So-
look at? Your locations look great. I've seen them, the newer
Yeah.
pictures, they look fantastic.
The problem with that's a hollow. It would be, I guess we could put film over it, but when we are budgeting for these, we don't budget for all the glazing up there.
Just asking.
Yep, no, so that's,
Not a make or break for me.
yeah, okay.
Sure, are you just looking for raised letters on it? So it's not so...
Something, because of what you see
You don't
here
like it
is,
flat.
it's flat,
Right.
and that's what constitutes it. With something that sticks out
Right,
like
so you
raised
just want something
letters.
raised letters.
Right,
Like an embossing, I think is what she's looking for.
exactly, where it's protruding, like,
Yeah, you can-
individual, like.
Well, it makes it stand out.
Right. Well, it's not a box sign. Then.
It's still a box sign with raised
But,
letters.
Right.
at least it looks a little bit more
Well,
dimensional.
yes, I agree. Okay, anything else?
Are we passing this condition
I am also okay with as is. If you end up getting a different approval, it's a bonus. So,
Yeah, I can see the merit to what Trustee Sweets is asking
yeah.
for. And it does set the bar a little bit higher for a box sign for the next person who comes before us on it. So it'd be worth, I think, getting that information and bringing it back to us. Are you on a critical timeline? Or?
As of right now, no, this is a project looking into the start of the first quarter, second quarter next year. So we do have a little bit of wiggle room, so it shouldn't be, I mean, I can get it by the end of the week, so it's not a huge hindrance to try and figure something out.
So I think we'll just table it until next meeting.
But wait, I'm confused because you're saying you're okay passing it as is, but yet you want to table it. Could you just pass it as is with just the caveat that, you know, you're hopeful that you can come back with something that's embossed? I'm okay passing it as is as well because they're already an existing business with the box sign, and they're bringing value added to the community by adding this huge addition and improving the exterior of the building overall, which I appreciate, kind of giving the community a little bit of a facelift. I'm okay passing it as is. It sounds like Trustee Caprio is, and you are yourself, with the, you know, just it's not even a condition, it's just the hope that you could come back and you could present us with something a little more unique.
Sure.
That would be representative of the character from our land. We're looking for something just a little bit different. But again, I'm okay passing it as is because I appreciate all the investing in the community and staying here and adding to it and adding more landscaping as you're doing and the exterior as well.
So if there's no enhancements possible, it would be approved.
Right.
The way it is right now.
Correct. In my opinion.
No, I agree. Like I said, I can see the merits of what Trustee Sweets is asking for. I'm okay with it the way it is, so I will leave the motion, my motion the way it was, and I won't amend it. And we can, you know, you certainly seem amenable to looking into it and trying to make it a, you know, a +1. So.
It is doable. I was in that business. It's very doable to just what she's looking for to do that embossing there, and the cost is, you know, nothing. I mean, I'm not gonna say nothing, but
Yeah.
you guys can do it.
So if this gets approved as is, what's his initiative to do anything?
Good
Because
neighbors.
he looks at it.
Oh, he looks honest.
We're here to do what's best for you guys and us. You know, like you said, we're excited about this expansion. We've seen double-digit sales growth in all of our stores with these remodels. It's just a really positive for the community, and you know, we're not a kind of company that's going to step on any toes. We've got a lot more of these to do. I'm sure you have a lot of friends in Lamont and other areas that we're trying to build other stores in. We're not here to do anything like that. I'll see what we get approved from the director of real estate, our VP. You know, obviously going off the prototype, get a design from our company, and see what the difference is. It's as simple as a different film that has protruding letters or whatever it may be. It's just something that I have never experienced and just have to get some more information.
Do you know if the product wear is going to be changing? You have a great store in LaSalle, Peru.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep. The product layout it changes to the new Peru. There's 50 new products that we're able to fit with our new coolers and MDUs. So you'll have new products, new graphics, all that good stuff. So.
Any other questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers? Trustee Sweet?
No.
Trustee Nancy-Turkey?
Aye.
And Trustee Kemp?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there a motion to approve change order number 2 from Austin Tyler Construction, Inc. for Finnegan Creek Sanitary?
You skipped 4.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 18055, an ordinance amending the following sections of the village code: 1, 9253 encroachments, 2,
do have a few questions that I believe Stuart, is that?
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit what, what you went through with the plan commission? And I know you get different levels of where these small wireless can go, different zones.
Yeah, let me explain the dialogue that I had with the Plan Commission concerning this. A little background. Back in April, the governor signed the Small Wireless Facilities Deployment Act, SWIFTA, which set forth in state law a process for accelerated deployment of small cells in municipalities and counties. It applies to counties. To do that, the legislation allows for the installation of small cells in rights of way as a permitted use. It goes further and also allows for the installation of small cells on utility poles or other structures in commercial and industrial areas as a permitted use. However, it is not monolithic that way. And as I explained to the Plan Commission, there are areas in which a municipality still has considerable zoning authority over the siting of small cells once they're outside of a right-of-way, particularly in residential areas, in the agricultural areas that we discussed with the Plan Commission, and also in the areas that are E1 and E2. Those can require special use depending on their location. Also, there was some discussion with the Plan Commission about siting them in parks. We discussed the issue of how large of a park should accommodate a small cell. There was language in the revision before you that recommends that a park of more than 10 acres can accommodate a wireless facility, and if there is a right-of-way within the park, that it would go within the right-of-way, or if it's outside the right-of-way, then the park, then it can still be placed in the park under a special use. There are areas within residential where a small cell, or for that matter, a regular cell site, could be located on a water tower or other structure under a special use as well. There were a couple other areas that we talked about with the Plan Commission concerning public safety, that there be room set aside on utility poles, particularly village utility poles, for public safety antennas, radios, communications apparatus, as long as it didn't interfere with a small cell. But where there would be conflict, the public safety application would prevail. There is also an issue we discussed at the Plan Commission concerning priority, that some, that is also in your materials as well, that set forth different levels of priority in terms of location for siting. One thing the Plan Commission did want to make clear was that the establishment of priority didn't serve as a barrier to entry or prevent wireless services from being provided. And the language in the document before you specifically references language out of the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that states that a lower priority for siting does not create a better barrier to entry and is not intended to prevent wireless services from being provided. That is kind of what we went over with the Plan Commission in a nutshell. There are changes, of course, to the wording to allow for SWIFTA to be incorporated into the village's zoning ordinance. There is a change to fees, because SWIFTA set a fee structure, which is at the back of your materials. $650 for the first small cell application, $350 for anything beyond the first application, and then $1,000 for siting that involves a new pole. That generally is sort of a summary of the issues that were brought before the Plan Commission.
Who sets the fees?
Those were set under state law.
Oh,
The
that's
General
the state
Assembly
law.
set those.
Okay.
And there is a requirement under SWIFTA where municipalities are required to adopt those by August 1st, but realizing that the governor signed the bill on April 12th didn't give municipalities a lot of time to do that. So the industry has been kind of, saying, we'll forbear with regard to the time period on that. But at some point, municipalities that haven't approved the fee structure are probably going to get a tap on the shoulder by AT&T or Verizon or Sprint or T-Mobile.
Why, since the fourth priority is residential.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they didn't do a lot of, health.
Sorry?
I'm sure, the fourth priority is residential.
Right.
And if these things start popping up like mushrooms all over, is there a way that we could say no completely to residential areas?
Not within right of way. What you can do, though, is if there is a problem with the location, where it might be visually obtrusive, with oncoming traffic, or it just kind of sticks out a little too much, you can request that they relocate within 100-foot perimeter, or if it's near an intersection, 300 feet. And that would be an area where the staff would want to work with the carrier to try and see if there's a better location for it. The second thing that the village should do is that the village has pretty strong aesthetic standards with regard to maintaining the visual character of a particular area. And one of the things that SWIFTA left alone for the most part was the ability of a municipality to apply its aesthetic standards to the visual appearance of the small cell. One thing that bothers me that's coming up, it's not in SWIFTA, but it's in FCC regulations that go into effect in January, is that the FCC regulations state that aesthetic requirements must be reasonable. Of course, they don't define that. Must be generally applied. That means it's not, you can't just apply it to small cells. Any other wireless provider, or for that matter, any other user of the right-of-way, has to be subject to the same aesthetic standards, and it has to be published. Well, that's no problem because you've already published them. But there is a conflict between SWIFTA and the new FCC standards, and the municipal league, the Illinois Municipal League, is kind of working on how best to advise cities on how to reconcile that. But I don't mean to get off on too much of a tangent with that, but I would strongly suggest that as these come in, depending on their location, that the aesthetic standards found within the telecommunications section of the zoning ordinance be applied where possible. And those aesthetic standards can range in, based on location, it can be a specifically designed structure where the small cell can't be seen at all, or perhaps a cap or some other design where the antennas and radios aren't obvious. There are some now that are going up that are sort of tubular, that have sort of a cylinder on top, and you can't really tell what it is. But it's painted in a neutral color, and it's generally tries not to stick out amongst all the other poles and appurtenances in the right of way.
So I take it, we can't say no, basically.
You can say no in certain circumstances. You can require aesthetic qualities to be built into the installation, but where it's a permitted, where the law says it's a permitted use, it's very difficult to say no, absolutely in all cases. And unfortunately, this could have been a lot worse, this legislation. This was negotiated over a year and a half between municipal representatives, technical people such as myself, village attorneys, and municipal attorneys from downstate, utility people. This started off a lot worse. It would have been permitted use everywhere as this bill was originally written.
So I just want to mention that what Trustee Suisse is trying to say is that, and what I've gotten from meeting with you and having you at our public safety committee meetings and other meetings that you've been to, there's a lot that the state and the federal are doing that they're going to stop us from trying to get in the way of these things. And really, we shouldn't get in the way of having good communication and good telecom in our community. It's just a matter of, I think all of us want to make sure that we've done everything we can to make sure we've safeguarded all those things that we've had in place, and we continue to within the parameters of the law. And I believe that's where you've gotten us to, if I read it all correctly, again through our discussions. And I appreciate that you put on there, that you worked with us in trying to get our first responders, onto those facilities as well. So
that is an area where municipalities and the industry actually had substantial agreement, was the importance of first responders to be able to have their facilities be, where possible, in concert with the small cells that might be on a particular pole or tower. It's going to be a rare instance where there's conflicts to the point where the small cell gets knocked off, but the industry agreed that public safety communications does take precedence.
Any other questions? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you.
Trustee Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure working on this.
Is there a motion to approve change order number 2 from Austin Tyler Construction, Inc. for the Fittiman Creek Sanitary Sewer Project in the amount of $21,243.00.
I so move.
Trustee Suisse,
I'll second.
Turkey, discussion?
The other thing I'd like to ask, Mayor, is that it mentions that this particular device has a 10-week lead time on it, and I just want to make certain, is that going to impact our timeline on getting this first leg done, or is this not something we need to complete that first portion?
This would be at the very end where we're connecting, so the rest of the sanitary sewer is definitely well underway.
So it won't get in the way of those dates we know, those dates certain in December for those annexations, because this would put us into January, I believe, the 10-week timeline.
That's my knowledge, but I am verifying that, and I will get that information back to you.
Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 18-056, an ordinance authorizing the adjustment of traffic control devices, speed limit signs on Heritage Circle, and reducing the speed limit from 25 miles per hour to 15 miles per hour?
I so move.
Mr. Caprio?
Second.
Mr. Gray? Discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse? Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to direct the mayor to sign the attached contract with Con discussion?
Can Mr. Robinson explain a little bit about this electric switchboard?
Well, we went out for the, as it says here, we went out for the RFP in August. We had a vote on August 30th. On September 12th, the board approved Conley Electric proposal to install the equipment. And this is the contract for the installation.
Okay, right, what is the purpose of?
The purpose of the switchboard that we're putting in, it's the main power for Heritage Park. So all the whatever else we power in the park will come out of that switchboard.
It'll
So
be
the power for the active core will come from that. The power for any other amenities, the future power for Homerfest.
That's what I was going to ask.
So
Okay.
that's all been calculated in to be operated from there.
Any other questions? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Trustee Nancy Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Campbell?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to remove the barbed wire surrounding Heritage Park?
So,
Second.
Mr. Turkey, Mr. Rogers.
I'll third.
I think everybody's second that.
I know the discussion is about time. So,
Well, wasn't the discussion we had a discussion?
I mean, Trustee Turkey, Nancy Turkey, and myself brought this to the Parks Committee because initially I think that we had discussed leaving it up there during construction and the safety of construction, but in reality and realistically, that's not going to keep anybody out of going into the park and pulling out a tractor or whatever else they're going to do. They're going to go under it, they're going to cut, as facility manager, Mr. Robbins says, they'll cut right through the fence. We've got an opening over the fence over there, and it's just, it just, as we've always said since the day we were elected, this is something that George, you and I talked about while we were campaigning. It's just, it looks like cell block H. It's very unappealing, and the consensus of the park committee was to take it down.
it'll look so much better.
And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said this is like the perfect time. You're not really cutting grass and you're not shoveling snow, so
Yeah, we're starting to wind down the maintenance of the parks, and we're cleaning things out, and so we shouldn't have a problem getting it out by the end of the year. So.
I'd just like, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to add that, I agree with everything that's been said. It's about time we've taken this on, and it does, when it was a private concern, it was understandable that it was there. So I'm glad to see this happening, but I'd like it not to end with this. I'd like to see maybe in a meeting or two that we have another portion brought before us about talking about taking down parts of that fence as well. Not the parts of the fence that are along people's houses, along Woodbine and Woodbine West and Saddlebrook and back. But there are certain portions, like right here along the library, that could easily go. I know that the township might have some problems with the Stallions or some of the athletics, but I think those are discussions that we need to start having after the barbed wire comes down too. There are certain portions of it that can probably go to make it look much more like one, homogeneous park or municipal area.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see that as an agenda item sooner rather than later, especially because we've cut a hole in it. I mean, there's a big hole at access point. No, it's there today. You go right through it.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, well, what's the point,
But John, didn't you say you would needed that fence for Homerfest?
One of the
Well, that's
things.
what I was saying. You could just add it as an agenda, even if it's an item of discussion at some point. Talk about that, throw it on there. It doesn't have to be an action item, but a workshop item, we could do that.
Well, why don't we take a look and designate what we would like to take down, so we can do what we can do that.
Yeah, I think it has to be part of the workshop, so we can talk about who's paying for what.
So we can just put that on the list and see.
On your honey-do list.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other discussion on it? Okay. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Nancy Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
aye.
Trustee Cameron.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 18-057, an ordinance amending 8368 of the code, decreasing the number of Class F liquor licenses by one, Wild Sushi of Homer Glen, DBA Wild Sushi 14407 South Bell Road, Homer Glen, Illinois.
I so move.
Trustee Gabriel,
I'll second.
Trustee Suisse, discussion.
Madam Clerk, can we have clip notes on this one?
Basically, new owners took over the summer. Licenses are not transferable. They were kind of holding off just because, of their budgetary implications. And then we had discussions with Clerk and Carey about reducing the annual fee. And given that it's so close to the automatic 50% reduction, we went ahead to proceed. They actually wanted to proceed with the last board meeting, but that agenda was so jam-packed with the community and nature and the board, so we postponed to this.
So we're taking it out, putting it back in, taking it
Well,
out?
basically what happened was when they sold it, it never got taken off. That license just expired. So that's just a cleanup of the actual ordinance itself, the way it's written.
Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Cabrio?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Nancy Turkey?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 18-058, an ordinance amending 8368 of the Homer Glen Code, increasing the number of Class F liquor licenses issued within the village of Homer Glen? It is understood that the number of F liquor licenses, beer and wine, will increase by one.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Gray, Trustee Trey, discussion.
I'll just add that village manager Marie and I have talked about maybe finding a way to simplify that process so it doesn't take ordinances to transfer, get a new license for the same business location.
Right. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Nancy Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Cabrio?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 18-059, an ordinance assigning the available Class F liquor license that was just approved, beer and wine retail sales to Wild Sushi, Homer Glen, Inc., DBA Wild Sushi located at 14407 South Bell Road, Homer Glen, Illinois.
So moved.
Close. It's Lee Chow Inc., DBA Wild Sushi.
There's no Lee here. I'll just, wow.
Second.
Who made a motion? Carol?
No, Christina.
Christina, I second it.
Mine's missing some letters.
Sorry.
Okay, discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
5. Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Cabrio?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Nancy Turkey?
Aye.
Motion carries. Workshop, discussion regarding street signs at Evelyn's Gate subdivision. Mike Salamowitz.
Thank
Can
you.
you make some people happy tonight?
Certainly hope so. As the board knows, the developer of the Evelyn's Gate subdivision has recently completed the improvements in the subdivision. As part of that completion of the work, they had installed the signs, all of the signage in the subdivision that was included in the original subdivision plan. This included work, or the various signage at the two roundabouts, the one at Blue Mag Road and Sid Creek, and the other one at Sid Creek and Isbrook Drive. Shortly after the installation of the signs, several of the residents in the development or the subdivision had expressed concerns regarding the number of signs and the location of the signs, and had requested that the village look into what signs can potentially be removed, what would be required, that sort of thing. Staff had HR Green take a look at this, the various signage at the two roundabouts. They looked at the signs as compared to the manual on uniform traffic control devices. This is a manual that is put out by the Federal Highway Administration, and basically it's to provide uniform signage throughout the country. On page 2 of the supplement sheet, there's basically a chart that shows the signage that is located at the 2 roundabouts, and what is either has already been removed, which as noted, the yield ahead has already been removed. The optional removals, the keep right and the one way, so they have noted that those 2 signs can be removed. Optional signs per the manual, but recommended to keep are the roundabout and the pedestrian crossing signs. And one thing to keep a note, that each location has bike trails at those locations. As a consistency at other locations where we have bike trails throughout the village, the crossings of streets, we are also putting those same crossing signs at those locations as well too. So it is something suggested that for consistency, we may want to consider doing the same signage there. And then what the manual requires to keep is the chevron, which is kind of the diagonal arrow sign, the white and black arrow sign, and then the yield sign. One thing to keep in mind is based on the manual uniform traffic control devices, the 2 roundabouts in this subdivision would be classified as a one-lane roundabout. So we've provided exhibits as to the one lane, and then I know there were some questions that were brought up at a previous meeting about the mini roundabout. This would not be classified, neither one would be classified as a mini roundabout. Typically, the mini roundabouts have a paved center island, and those are mountable. So again, basically what is located out there would be considered the one lane roundabouts.
What I have said all along is I'm fine with taking anything out that doesn't put the village in any kind of legal situation where, they wanted it out, so we said, yeah, we'll take it out. As long as the engineer is saying, this is the only thing you have to have in here, anything else that has to come out, I'm fine with. If it says, oh, it's optional, then legally we're not bound to do that, so I would say take it out, because there are a lot of signs there. I think it was shocking for them to wake up and have that many signs, overnight. So I would say, in my opinion, I would say, whatever we're legally bound to keep, we keep, which doesn't seem like a whole lot here. I think it's 2 signs, and anything that's optional, I would get rid of. It's just my own opinion.
I agree with you.
I agree also, but I'd also like to know, how did we get to that point? What was the criteria when this subdivision was platted and these engineering drawings were looked at, and somebody said, here's the book, and put all of it up, and now here we are 10, 13 years later saying, wow, we didn't really need to encumber you and make you put up all of that. A lot of that was optional. I mean, should people or should developers know at that time when they're planning these things that those items are optional, these are required. There's no wiggle room on certain things.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, 10 years ago, what changed 10 years ago from then to now that, essentially, he wasted some money out here buying signs that, isn't really required. So what was the change?
The second change was he was closing out of everything he had to do in the village, and that was one of the things that was on the list.
No, 10 years ago, when you guys approved this, you said it's approved contingent on these, 500,000 signs going out here. But why was there that many?
Right, were they not optional at the time, and now they've become optional? Or if they were optional back then, and they're optional today, the developer, the village should have known that we require these are optional if you want. Maybe we'd even recommend, maybe there's certain things that are optional that we recommend. We do that quite often as a board, we recommend things.
Yeah, like if there was a pond, and, you might want to duck crossing.
Or where we knew we were going to continue to cite the trail, like you said, Mike, and that kind of then says, all right, you need the crossing sign, the one that shows the pedestrians. So maybe we knew ahead of time that we were going to, institute those trails and make that continuous loop. So we would ask for those up front. But, you know, if there were all these other ones that were just, you know, extra, you know, why did we require them? I just want to make sure going forward, we're not doing that. We're looking at MI homes, we're looking at Goodings Grove, things. I just want to make sure we're not, you know, overly burdening these developers and then have people come back to us and then we have to sit there and say, well, we didn't really require those anyhow, so.
This was the first roundabouts that were put in the village, and I think at that time, I think they just threw a bucket of it, so put whatever you got, no one knew, so they put it. So now.
There's a roundabout in, Old South, and then East West.
But that was before they were a village though. Old Oak.
Oh, on Oakland?
Yeah.
That was when the berm came down.
Right, when Berkeley was roundabout there, that was after we were village.
That one's more of a traffic calming feature than really a roundabout, so.
But the signs are good, eh?
So, I'm happy it's coming out to the, because it is a Jersey better. It looks just much nicer.
So I just want to be clear, so the board's direction would be to, basically to keep the chevron and the yield and remove the remaining signs, is that correct? That's all.
It's all
Yes, if the others are optional, I pull them on too.
Okay.
On something that's mandated, then yes, we should do it.
With the exception of the pedestrian crossing, I would say, because again, the pedestrian crossing is, if we're continuing on our trail system, and we do have that all through the village, at trail crossings, wherever we're intersecting with a street, I would say that, because that's one you have optional, but recommended to keep is the
Is it pedestrian crossing?
pedestrian crossing and the roundabout.
If we did that, what I would like to do is see if
It's a
the yield sign is put it on the same sign. You don't need the separation. They're all going to be looking straight ahead because right now we have this on the side of the road. If we put them on the same sign,
Double-sided, you're saying?
well,
Make one sign double-sided?
here,
You need stacking.
like this one where you've got this, take this, put it in the middle. This is exactly what we're
Oh,
looking at. Because
yeah,
you're coming up on it
stack.
rather than being, so you want to stack. Just so.
You would have to
you don't
stack
picture
the
it.
yield and the pedestrian one though then.
But then what's the point of the pretty roundabout?
Well, they still can see it. It's not.
Have you been over there?
Yeah. But if they took this, because first of all, trees grow over it.
Well, I gotta verify that.
Now you're taking guys over here.
Regulatory and
I don't think you could
warning sign.
What it was before, but you can put it here, you can leave this one up in here, but just take, because this, we want them to the western crossing right there, we have inside the grass, because now it makes sense. You got the lines and everything there.
I guess my theory is just, it's a corner, that don't people know people cross the street there anyways?
And Mayor, they're gonna have to look at the legality of doing that, because if it's a stop sign, I don't think you can do a stop sign.
No, it's not a stop sign.
But it's a yield sign, that's a similar.
Well, they have to have a one-way sign too.
Yeah, no, you have to.
And every other sign.
We can certainly, if whatever the board's direction, we can verify whether or not a regulatory sign can be on the same post as a warning sign. And if that's the case, we can certainly do that.
Well, what I would suggest is just, always take a ride over when you got some time, take a look, because a lot of them are already out, and see what you think of the rest of them, and if it's an optional, then just bring it up to Mike, or bring it up to Ann, and then from there, she can see whether we're gonna go or we're gonna leave. So, some opinion?
No, I don't know what the consensus is again now. I thought we went from if it's mandatory, we leave it, but now you're saying, well, everybody just go and give in their opinion, so I'm kind of confused on what.
Well, I'm just talking, if they're gonna, the crosswalk they want.
Well, who does?
Well,
This guy does. I don't want the crossing there.
You don't want the crosswalk there?
No, it's a corner. You don't know people across the street on the corner. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. If I'm driving in a car and I see a corner, I mean, I'm gonna know people are gonna cross it. Especially if there's people standing there.
I like those
I
because.
mean, that should be the sign enough.
I like those because it is a striped pedestrian crossing as well.
And if it's.
And it's continuing our path system that we have throughout the village, and it's leading to a village park, because there is a village park in.
That's what I was, is it taking people to the park?
Well, all of those sidewalks and everything would eventually get to the park.
Isn't there one of them that's not even like really close to the park though? That,
Yeah, street. Or
I think it's this
one of these roundabouts that would be,
Inside?
ask Lieutenant Holly what he thinks. No?
Good. You tell me what to enforce, and I'll do it.
Well, right now, the way you got it, if it's,
I also really like out here in this park, when you drive through, everywhere we have pedestrian crossing going from one side of the park to the other side, we have it striped and we have a pedestrian sign.
This one is
And that's not even on.
Where are they going, to grass? They're gonna drive up to grass?
Well, it's not finished.
Well, then we can always.
We probably have
The
some
sidewalks
signs
are
in
just
churches.
but they will be. What's that?
Probably have some signs in churches.
You know, up here, and to be honest with you, when I drive through Heritage Park, when I drive on Heritage Circle, those slow me down. Those are visual keys to me that, you know, if there is a pedestrian crossing. And there's nobody out there right now. I mean, we all know that you can drive through there right now, and there's nobody in the park. So when it becomes, you know, cars parked there and people being active in there, those will help, I think.
yeah, if it's on the same side, it's not gonna be obtrusive.
So, that's my feeling.
All right,
So what are we voting on?
There's no vote.
no, this is just a workshop. So that's what I'm saying, if you put it right out there, I know you don't have to worry about that, so see what you think, but in the meantime, you've done a good job, and thank you.
Can I just ask for clarification on what we're doing with the street crossing sign?
Yeah.
I just want to understand.
Well, right now, and I'm just, this is just my opinion, I would like it in the middle, right below the direction that it's pointing to, so this way as they're pulling up to the sign, they also know that it's a crosswalk.
So I guess the question is whether legally you can put that sign on one of the other signs, whether there's specific standards for like the yield sign.
For a regular.
Typically, I'll verify that, but typically you would, like a regulatory sign and a warning sign typically would not go on the same. And also typically your pedestrian sign would be at the side where the pedestrians would enter from that side of the street.
Like I said, it's just my opinion. So I think, whatever the board decides, absolutely fine.
So we have to keep the chevron sign and the keep right sign? And
The yield.
The chevron and the yield?
Yield, the required to keep is yield and chevron. But Mike is saying you can come up with a smaller chevron that only has 2 bars, correct?
Correct.
So it's probably half the size of that 4-bar chevron.
That's gonna make a nice difference.
The optional but recommended keep is the pedestrian crossing and the roundabout. Optional but recommended keep is pedestrian and roundabout. The optional removal is the keep right and one.
So what are we doing?
Well, we're keeping the mandatory, we know that. And then it seems like, and you're gonna go smaller in the chevron.
Correct.
And then the pedestrian, I would say, Keith, if you could get a consensus from your committee on that, and then if the consensus is, yeah, that all of the public safety people feel that we need that, then I would say we add that, but at this time, we'll wait. So I would tell him not to take them down, because if they come back and say, yeah, the consensus is to keep them, then he's just gonna have to go put them back up again. So I would say, tell him to keep them up, contingent on the public safety's recommendation.
Well, will that have to come back before the board then, or?
No, this is just a consensus.
Right, so I think once you guys talk about it, you can put it on your agenda, then once you guys talk about it, if you could just get like a written consensus to Anne Marie, and then Anne Marie can direct.
Do we need an ordinance to take down signs? I know we need an ordinance to put signs up, so do we need an ordinance to take signs down? We didn't approve. Well, we didn't approve them in a separate ordinance, but they must have been approved as part of the original
They would have been
development.
They would have been approved as part of the original subdivision plan that was approved by the board,
So,
at least the signage plan.
so we also need to know that, then do we need to, maybe, believe it or?
It's that detailed in the plan that those have to be out there?
Yeah.
And are we gonna have to refund for the signs? If we made them put them up and then set them down?
Part of what you gotta do in the first place. They put them out.
And the only comment I would have, I agree with the turnabout sign of the pedestrian walk, only because those who don't
the decision is to definitely go with the signs to be removed. And then as far as the pedestrian sign, the Public Safety Committee is going to look at that, and the board will follow the direction of the Public Safety Committee in regards to the pedestrian signage throughout the village. Our village attorney is going to follow up and determine what we need to do, whether the board needs to take formal action, since this was originally an item that was recommended by the Planning Commission and approved by the board. And we'll come back to you if there is formal action you need to take. You'll see it as an action item.
Right, and I mean, he could, because of the direction that we're giving, sorry.
Because of the direction that we're giving, he could take those pedestrians down if he wanted to. It's just my own opinion, I think he should leave them up there until after the decision is made, so he's not putting them up and taking them down and drilling again and everything, yeah.
Okay, Vice, you've got it too then?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think you really should tell him not to take on anything until we hear from.
Until we hear from the attorney.
Legal, if we can do that without the ordinance, because, I mean, he might be outside of the ordinance already by taking down one that, you know, was removed. So, we should certainly get that.
Okay, you don't have to vote on that, so is there any old business?
Well, I'm sorry, I know that, and we talked, there was some emails going back and forth about this, the overall active core strategic planning, and are we gonna put that on an agenda soon to talk about it, or?
Yes, what I need to do is, I've done the research as far as when this was last discussed by the board, which I think was about July 23rd is when we had a workshop. I need to have an internal meeting with staff and then bring it back. I think there's a couple different components. So one component is to understand how this ties into the timing with the active core. I think the other issue that I want to discuss with the finance director is what's the process here for tying this into the budget process? Because it seems like that's going to be the next phase of Heritage Park. But yes, we'll bring this back as a workshop item. I just need to get the full scope of it. And then I did have a brief conversation the other day with the village attorney on the structure of the contract. There may be some recommended changes just to the structure. So, and one of the other key things that we would be really good to get direction from moving forward is there's a philosophical difference as to how the active core contract with TRIA is structured versus a typical engineering contract is structured when they do oversight. So the simple question is, philosophically, who do you want to do the engineering oversight in Heritage Park? Do you want that to be TRIA, because right now they're doing observations, they're not doing inspections? Or do you want them to have a subcontract with an engineering firm? Or do you want the village to hire a separate engineering firm, or do you want us to do the engineering inspection? So I just want to be clear from what we're learning from Active Core as to how you want us to handle it in any subsequent phase.
Yeah.
So we'll bring all that back to you.
As far as the inspection with the engineering, if we have, say, HR Green doing inspections, it's going to be significantly more expensive, correct?
I don't know what the rate, it would be an additional cost that you would incur, yes.
Well, wouldn't it be an additional cost if you're subcontracting this out from, say, TRIA to something else?
Yes.
It's going to be the same, so I think the village should do, maybe do our.
Well, the TRIA is doing the inspections now.
Right, but I mean,
yeah,
the engineering for it.
Yeah, what we've talked about at some of the meetings is should they be doing these inspections, or should HR Green be doing these inspections? And the feedback is that that's a little overkill, and that's definitely beyond the scope of what we contracted, and the cost would be significantly more. So it's something to look at. I just want to make sure that we're ahead of it before the end of the year. We're closing that out and moving to the next.
Sure, we'll bring it back.
Are we getting to a point where our new village engineer can start doing any of this, or is this not in her wheelhouse?
That's one of the things we need to discuss internally as to what is the role of that person, of that position, and whether this is something time-wise that can be done. It's a discussion that we've not had yet, but I plan on having.
Has she started yet?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, this is about close to a month now. Been here about 4 weeks.
Yeah, I've never met her.
I'm on by, we'll introduce you.
Yeah, I've been there, you guys are back in the corner back there or something. Let's see.
Okay,